Hello, my name is Jess Collins. I'm really pleased to be part of the EXARC conference, and I'd like to talk today about a voice for archaeology in engaging museum audiences with climate change. My background is in teaching and in museum education, and I'm currently working in climate change engagement at heritage sites. I've recently completed a doctorate at the University of Exeter, examining the links between archaeology, museums and climate change communication. My aim in this presentation is to encourage reflection on the unique contribution of museum archaeology to climate stories. For my thesis, I examined a range of climate change initiatives in museums, backed by interviews with museum curatorial staff. 3 questions underpinned my research. Firstly, the connections between climate change and the study of archaeology itself. Archaeology has a long history of seeking to understand the interactions between climate and culture. How did environmental change impact on human societies, and how did human actions alter the environment? Secondly, I looked at the role of museums in the public understanding of the climate crisis we face today. Museums are trusted institutions. Visitors have high expectations and want them to move with the times. I believe archaeology collections, whether in the context of an open-air museum or in a traditional gallery setting, can make a significant contribution to climate change understanding as collections of science and natural history. Thirdly, I examined how the presentation of archaeology can support and enhance climate change engagement through positive messaging. Climate science can be difficult to understand. Archaeology brings a human element, providing a wealth of relatable artefacts and stories. Reflecting on examples of climate exhibitions provides inspiration for possible interpretations. The Atmosphere Gallery at London's Science Museum, shown here by tree rings on the top right and an ice core, covers many aspects of climate science, including methods for understanding climate past. In contrast, the London-based Museum of Water, pictured at the top to the left of the tree rings, is a mobile museum space, a living collection, with people being invited to donate water that is important to them through memory or association, along with the accompanying stories. The museum travels the world, creating programs to explore the interconnected questions of water, migration and climate change. The Climate Museum in New York, pictured top right, is a hub for climate leadership. Art and photography exhibitions and digital interactives combine to portray climate change and to stimulate action. The photo is of a video installation by artist Peggy Weil, showing a journey down through the Greenland ice sheet, demonstrating how ice core science helps us to understand Earth's past and future climate, as well as the fragility of polar ice. The small picture at the top left is of a spear thrower carved out of antler to look like a mammoth. Many thousands of years old, this comes from an exhibition at the British Museum on Ice Age art, which, in offering a glimpse of deep time, touched on both archaeology and environmental change. A recent exhibition at the British Museum on Arctic culture and climate explored the ecological knowledge and artistic traditions of indigenous Arctic peoples, represented here by a bag made from salmon skin and a contemporary artwork by the Inuit artist Kenajuak Ashivak. Using both historic and modern-day objects crafted from the Arctic landscape, the exhibition highlighted the resilience of communities living at the forefront of climate change. As well as opportunities, there are challenges to be overcome in taking archaeology as a starting point for climate engagement. Experiencing archaeological objects, which could include replicas or reconstructions, as well as actual artefacts, helps us see that climate was important to the lives of individuals long ago and to whole societies. archaeology sparks enthusiasm and encourages us to make climate connections through time. But how can artefacts relevant to climate be identified? Not every museum has collections with an obvious or meaningful link to climate change. However, many museums possess expertise across a range of disciplines, and objects can be combined in creative ways to tell stories. Such stories could feature experimental archaeology, or items of contemporary archaeology and artefacts from the recent past, or industrial archaeology, ethnography, artworks, and photographs. Another example of the benefits of an archaeological approach to climate change is that through an exploration of the adaptability of past communities, people can be helped to deal with the implications of climate change today. However, climate messages can be confusing. It is important that the distinction is made between natural climate change in the past and the unique nature of the human-induced climate crisis we are facing today. Archaeology illustrates change. A sense of the inevitability of change can mask the reality that the climate emergency is not simply about accepting and adapting to change, but about acting to reduce the carbon emissions that have caused the changes in the first place. It matters that the climate stories and activities chosen should, where possible, offset feelings of fatigue and helplessness around the climate crisis and inspire a sense of affirmation and empowerment in their listeners and participants. I was privileged recently to be able to develop a climate change education programme at a heritage site in the city of Exeter, St Nicholas Priory. The Priory is an 11th century Benedictine monastery that later became the home of a wealthy merchant family. Today it is a museum, interpreted as an Elizabethan townhouse, and is a popular venue for families, school visits and guided tours. Seeking to extend its education offer, the Priory wished to devise activities to link the story of the building and its people to present-day messages about climate change. Initially, these were to be aimed at school groups, but the idea is to adapt them for other audiences too. The focus of many of the visits by primary schools to St Nicholas Priory is to study everyday life in the time of the Tudor kings and queens. My challenge was to combine the building and its Tudor history with a message about climate change. So I wrote a story about two children who come across, as you can see, a time-travelling Tudor mouse who lives in a jug in the Priory kitchen. I began by introducing the idea of change through time using the building as an example. The idea that the building is full of stories led into the story itself. The aim of the story was threefold: to get across the message that weather and climate mattered to people in the past, for example to the merchants putting out to sea in their sailing ships, and matter today, that climate change is happening very quickly, and that although people's actions have led to the climate crisis, we can take action to change things for the better. The children in the story, Lucy and Tom, travel with Benedict the Priory mouse through Exeter on a winter's day in Tudor times, where they see the frozen river and hear about the frost fairs of those times. Then way back to the end of the last ice age to discover that climate change can happen naturally. And I'll read a short excerpt from the story. The children looked round. Behind them were snowy crags and hills, while in front of the vast level land stretched away to the horizon. "This is where the sea will be," Ben explained, "in your time. As the Ice Age ended and the world grew warmer, the glaciers to the north, great rivers of ice, began to melt, and the water came flowing down and made the sea." Lucy and Tom began to glimpse small movements among the icy tufts of grass. "Yes," Ben said, following their thoughts, "it looks lifeless, but many animals live here." "Look over there!" Tom pointed into the distance. A procession of huge beasts, treading slowly, moved across the frosty ground. like giant elephants, but with long curled tusks and shaggy coats of fur. Mammoths! The children cried, delighted. Finally, of course, the children get back to their own time, via the Industrial Revolution, where they learn about fossil fuels and how humans are responsible for the changes in the atmosphere that have led to global warming. The story ends on a positive note. "Wait, I've got an idea," Tom exclaimed. "If you can take us back into the past, hundreds and even thousands of years, can't you take us to the future?" "Yes," Lucy joined in with enthusiasm. "We'd love to see how things turn out, with the climate, the planet, and everything really. Please take us to the future." Ben looked up at them with his inquisitive, beady eyes. Even though he was so small, and a mouse, he looked very wise. "Oh, I couldn't do that," he said. "You see, the future isn't there. It hasn't happened yet. It's waiting to be made. It's up to you to make the future the way you'd like it to be." Then he yawned, waved a sleepy paw, and disappeared back down inside the jug. "But aren't you going to tell us how you do it? How you travel into the past and out again?" "Now that," said a very faint little voice, "is a story for another time." To conclude, in this presentation, I've explained why archaeology matters in climate change engagement. I've given an example of how storytelling can be used in a heritage setting to communicate messages about the climate crisis. I'd like to offer these points for reflection on archaeology's unique voice in climate change engagement. Firstly, archaeology provides a way in. Working with people's curiosity about the past makes the challenging questions raised by the climate crisis more accessible. The Stone Age axe is arguably a more exciting introduction to the concept of an ice age than a temperature graph, or even an ice core. An ice core is beautiful and fascinating in its way, but is essentially a modern construct, not a thing made with intent thousands of years ago. Secondly, archaeology demonstrates the capacity of human communities to adapt to environmental changes. It provides the evidence of survival and can also inform us of failure to survive. Thirdly, archaeology gives us the long view. It shows us that human communities have adjusted over vast timescales to melting ice, rising seas, drought and flood, changes in vegetation, or the pattern of the seasons. Crucially, it highlights the unique speed of climate change today. In addition, archaeology helps us to understand how to live more sustainably. Seeing how people lived in a better balance with the natural world gives us glimpses into other ways of doing things. An increased empathy with the past encourages us to think of how humanity can move forward into a more just and sustainable future. Finally, archaeology is happening now. How are museums recording the climate stories of today? These stories are all part of the future archive of human responses to the climate threat. Archaeology connects our sense of the future with the perception of time past. Its voice should be heard in climate change engagement, to help us touch the past, attend to the present, and face the future with compassion and hope. My thanks go to the museum staff and staff at the University of Exeter who supported my research, and to those who I've worked with since on climate stories. Thank you.